The rain had started just as Elena left the studio that night. Her umbrella was broken again, another careless mistake in a week full of them. She pressed her sketchbook to her chest, rushing through the alley, the faint glow of streetlights flickering against puddles. The city was quiet, too quiet for a Friday. She should have taken the main road. She should have called a cab. But she didn't. And that one choice changed everything. A van screeched to a stop beside her. Before she could scream, hands gloved, rough, yanked her backward. The sketchbook slipped from her fingers, pages scattering through the rain like lost feathers. "Wait! Let me go!" she cried, voice muffled as a cloth pressed against her face. Her vision blurred. The last thing she saw was the reflection of neon lights melting across the wet asphalt. Then darkness. When she woke, the air smelled faintly of roses and money. She was lying on silk sheets, wrists free, head pounding. The room was enormous, walls of marble, gold curtains, and a chandelier that looked too delicate to belong in a place that felt this wrong. Elena sat up, breath trembling. "Where am I?" Before she could stand, the heavy door creaked open. A man stepped in. He was tall, broad shoulders under a black shirt, sleeves rolled to his forearms, revealing a faint scar along his wrist. His presence filled the room before his words did. His eyes, cold and unreadable, lingered on her like she was both a threat and a question. She swallowed hard. "Who are you?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he studied her in silence, then exhaled a soft, disappointed sigh. "You're not her." The words echoed, sharp and confusing. I don't know what you mean," she stammered. "You've made a mistake." His jaw tightened. "Apparently." He turned, voice calm but dangerous, the kind of calm that felt worse than shouting. "Take it up with fate, not me." He moved closer, each step deliberate, measured. The dim chandelier light traced the curve of his face, strong, elegant, dangerous. Elena backed away until her legs hit the bedpost. "Please, I'm just a student. I don't know anything. Let me go." For a moment, something flickered in his eyes, hesitation, maybe pity. Then it vanished. "I don't let people go," he said quietly. "Not until I know why they were in the wrong place at the wrong time." Her heartbeat quickened. "You kidnapped me by mistake. Isn't that reason enough?" He smirked, almost amused, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Maybe. But mistakes have a way of revealing things I meant to see." He turned toward the door, hand on the knob, voice lowering, smooth, final. "Until I decide what to do with you, you'll stay here. The guards won't hurt you, unless you give them a reason." "Wait," she called out, desperation cracking her voice. "Who are you?" He looked back over his shoulder, a faint shadow of irony crossing his face. "Luca Moretti." A name she'd heard whispered on the news, linked to power, crime, and danger. Her stomach dropped. He met her eyes one last time, his tone soft but chilling. "You're not the girl I wanted." Then, after a long pause, his lips curved into something between a threat and a promise. "But now that you're here, you're not leaving." The door closed. Elena sat frozen, the sound of rain still faintly echoing through the glass walls. Somewhere deep inside, she felt it, that tonight was not an accident. And whatever this man wanted, her life would never be the same again. The next morning came quietly, though Elena had barely slept. Sunlight filtered through sheer curtains, spilling gold across the marble floor. For a fleeting second, she almost forgot where she was, until the sound of a lock clicking reminded her. A guard stood by the door, silent and expressionless. Another one waited by the hallway outside. She realized, with a hollow laugh in her chest, that this was what captivity looked like when wrapped in wealth. A cage made of gold. Her breakfast was served on silver trays, fresh fruit, warm croissants, coffee that smelled too expensive to drink. She touched nothing. Across the table sat Luca Moretti. Reading a newspaper like this was any ordinary morning. His sleeves were rolled again, exposing veins that caught the light when he turned a page. "Eat," he said without looking up. She clenched her jaw. "I'm not hungry." He lowered the paper just enough for their eyes to meet. "You will be." His voice wasn't raised, but it carried weight. the kind that left no room for argument. Elena forced herself to sip the coffee, partly out of fear, partly out of curiosity. Who was this man really? The rest of the day passed in slow, careful steps. She explored the halls, under the constant gaze of guards who followed her like shadows. The mansion was breathtaking, walls lined with Renaissance art, chandeliers dripping light, a scent of old wood and power. Everything screamed control, even the silence. She touched the frame of a painting, a woman with dark hair and eyes that looked eerily familiar. Something about the way she was painted felt personal. "That's my mother." Elena startled. Luca had appeared behind her, quiet as a ghost. "I didn't mean to." He raised a hand. "You can look. Just don't touch what you can't understand." His tone wasn't cruel this time, just tired. She turned, studying him, the sharpness in his eyes softened by something that almost looked like sorrow. "Why am I here, Luca?" she asked softly. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked past her, as if seeing someone else entirely. "Because someone wanted you to be." The way he said it made her stomach tighten. "You think someone sent me?" "I think," he said, stepping closer, "that someone wanted me distracted. And you, Elena." His gaze dropped briefly to her trembling hands. "You are a very effective distraction." She didn't know whether to feel insulted or terrified. He turned away, ending the conversation with a quiet command. "You'll stay here, for your own safety." Her laugh came out sharp. "Safety? You kidnapped me." Luca stopped at the door, one hand on the frame. "If I'd wanted you dead, you would be. So yes, this is safety." And then he was gone again, leaving her in a house that looked like paradise and felt like hell. That night, as the rain returned, Elena sat by the window, watching lightning cut across the sky. Somewhere deep inside, a question formed, one that refused to let her sleep. Who was the girl he meant to take? By the third evening, Elena had memorized every creak in the mansion, the echo of footsteps, the whisper of guards changing shifts, the faint tick of an antique clock that marked time she no longer owned. She hadn't seen Luca all day, and for that, she was grateful. Or so she told herself. When the knock finally came, she flinched. A guard opened the door, just enough to speak. "Mr. Moretti requests your presence for dinner." Requests. The word felt ironic. Still, something inside her, curiosity, maybe defiance, made her rise. The dining hall was nothing short of cinematic. A long mahogany table, polished until it mirrored the golden candlelight. Silver cutlery gleamed under the soft flicker of flames. A violin played faintly somewhere in the distance. At the far end sat Luca, black suit perfectly tailored, posture impossibly composed. When she entered, he didn't rise. He simply looked at her, gaze steady and unreadable. "Sit." It wasn't a command laced with cruelty this time, more like an invitation wrapped in authority. Elena hesitated, then took the seat opposite him. He poured wine into her glass, the red liquid swirling like liquid fire. "I don't drink," she murmured. "You do tonight," he replied, tone calm. "It helps with nerves." Her eyes flicked up. "You assume I'm nervous?" He smiled faintly. "I know you are." For a while they ate in silence. Every sound felt amplified. The scrape of silverware, the rain outside, the thud of her own heartbeat. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. "Why keep me here, Luca? You know I'm not the girl you wanted." He set down his fork, leaned back slightly. "You're right. You're not." His gaze locked with hers. "But you're interesting." Her breath hitched. "Interesting? Like a science experiment? Like a question I can't answer." The honesty in his tone unsettled her more than anger ever could. He studied her for a long moment, not as prey, but as someone he didn't understand. "You look at me like I'm a monster," he said softly. "Maybe I am. But tell me, Elena, what would you call someone who kills to protect what's his?" She hesitated. "Dangerous. Or desperate." His eyes flickered. "Both," he whispered, almost to himself. A long silence followed, filled only by the hum of thunder outside. Then his voice dropped lower, quiet, deliberate. "You should hate me," he said. "But part of you doesn't, does it?" Her pulse quickened. "You think too highly of yourself." A hint of amusement curved his lips. Maybe. But denial always sounds the same. She pushed her chair back, heart pounding. You're impossible. And you're still here. The words hung between them, not a threat, not quite affection, but something dangerous enough to make her chest ache. He stood, walking around the table, until he was close enough for her to see the faint shadows under his eyes. Proof that even devils lost sleep. Dinner's over, he murmured, stepping aside. But next time, Elena, don't wear fear like perfume. It attracts the wrong kind of men. She left without replying, pulse racing as the candlelight flickered behind her. In the corridor, her reflection stared back from the dark glass, wide-eyed, breathless, confused. Because for the first time, she couldn't tell if the fear in her chest was really fear at all. The storm had passed, but the air inside the mansion still felt heavy. Elena hadn't seen Luca since that tense dinner, a silence that felt almost intentional. He had left her to wander, to wonder, and to question everything about this golden prison. Days began to blur together. She painted to pass the time, rough sketches of faces, shadows, and eyes that looked too much like his. Every line she drew felt like a confession she didn't mean to make. But that morning, something drew her deeper into the house, beyond the corridors she was told not to cross. The hallway was different here. Quieter, older. Dust clung to the edges of ornate picture frames, and the light that spilled through stained glass painted the floor in fractured color. She hesitated before opening the last door, the one slightly ajar, as if inviting her in. Inside was a study, lined with shelves and secrets, books in Italian, stacks of old letters, and a faint scent of cedar and tobacco. On the desk sat a single photograph. Her hand trembled as she lifted it. The woman in the picture was laughing, dark hair, soft smile, a dimple just like hers. But it wasn't her. It couldn't be. The resemblance was uncanny, haunting. Behind her in the photo stood Luca, younger, less hardened, his arm around the woman's shoulders. His expression was unguarded, peaceful. Something twisted painfully in Elena's chest. Who was she? And why did Luca mistake Elena for her? Elena. His voice was quiet but sharp enough to cut through the air. She froze, the photo still in her hand. Luca stepped inside, the door closing behind him with a soft thud. His gaze moved from her face to the photograph, then back again. You shouldn't be in here, he said. His tone wasn't loud, but it carried a weight that made her pulse stutter. I was just curious. He stepped closer. Curiosity can be dangerous in this house. She held up the photo, voice shaking. Who is she? His jaw clenched, but he said nothing. She looks like me, Elena whispered. Exactly like me. Put it down, he ordered, low and deliberate. No. She met his eyes, anger overtaking fear. You kidnapped me because of her, didn't you? Who was she, Luca? Tell me the truth. He moved so fast she didn't see it coming. His hand closed over hers, gently but firmly, lowering the picture back to the desk. Don't go where you shouldn't, he said, voice barely above a whisper. Some ghosts don't like being remembered. His closeness made her heart race. She could feel the heat of his breath, the steady rhythm of his calm, while her own thoughts spiraled. What did she mean to you? She asked, softer this time. He looked away, and for a brief moment, his silence spoke more than words ever could. Everything, he finally said, and nothing I can have again. The way he said it, hollow, resigned, left her unsure whether to pity him or fear him. When he finally turned to leave, his tone softened, almost weary. Stay out of this wing, Elena. I'm not warning you again. And then he was gone. She stood alone, staring at the photograph, still glinting in the lamplight. Two faces, one past, one present, bound by something neither of them understood. And as thunder rumbled faintly in the distance once more, Elena knew one thing for certain. Whatever secret lived behind Luca's eyes was somehow buried inside her, too. The garden was a world apart from the mansion. Marble statues peered from between hedges, their frozen expressions eerily lifelike. Roses bloomed in carefully tended rows, their scent mingling with the crisp evening air. Lanterns cast soft golden halos over winding paths. Elena hesitated at the threshold, unsure if stepping outside was freedom or another kind of trap. "You like it?" a voice asked from behind. She turned to see Luca, coat unbuttoned, sleeves rolled neatly, hands resting lightly in his pockets. For the first time, he seemed human, less the monster of rumors, more a man shaped by his own battles. "It's beautiful," she admitted, voice low. "Almost peaceful." He smirked faintly. "Peace is dangerous in my world." They walked side by side, footsteps muted against the cobblestones. Neither spoke at first. Elena's mind was a tangle of questions, but a part of her, the part that had begun to doubt fear alone, wanted to hear him, really hear him. Finally, he broke the silence. "My father, he was a man who believed fear was respect," Luca said, gaze fixed on the horizon. "He taught my brother and me that loyalty could be bought, and betrayal could be punished without mercy." Elena swallowed, surprised at the softness of his tone. "And your mother?" "She died when I was young," he replied, eyes clouding. "Sometimes I wonder if her death wasn't the first real betrayal I ever knew." A silence followed, heavy but not uncomfortable. The roses swayed gently around them, carrying the scent of something fragile. Hope, maybe, or memory. "I've lost friends, enemies, everything I thought I could hold," he continued. "And yet every day I walk through this house and wonder if someone will take it all again, including me." Elena found herself staring at his profile, noticing the subtle tension in his jaw, the faint shadow under his eyes. The man who had kidnapped her, held her, frightened her, was also a man haunted by ghosts. "Why tell me this?" she asked cautiously. "Because," he said finally, voice quieter now, almost intimate. "You've seen more of me than anyone else has. And soon, you'll see even more. The question is whether you'll still care." Her chest tightened. She realized that care had already begun, an unbidden, dangerous pull toward someone she should fear but couldn't. "I don't know if I should care," she admitted, voice trembling. "Most things in my life are like that," he said, a shadow of a smile playing on his lips. "Impossible to ignore and impossible to fix." They paused by a fountain. Water glittered under lantern light, reflecting fragmented patterns across his face. For a moment, Elena felt a flicker of connection, fragile, fleeting, yet undeniable. And in that moment, she understood the cruel truth. The deeper she knew him, the more trapped she became. Not just by the mansion, not just by the guards, but by the tangled web of his past, his secrets, and her own feelings. Luca turned, voice low, almost a warning. "Enjoy the garden while you can. The world outside and inside is far less forgiving." Elena nodded silently, heart pounding. As they walked back toward the mansion, shadows stretched long and cold. She realized with a shiver that this rare moment of peace was merely the calm before another storm. The mansion was asleep, or at least it seemed so. Elena pressed herself against the cold stone walls, heart hammering, every breath shallow. Tonight, she decided she would run, not because she trusted herself to survive, but because she could no longer breathe inside these gilded walls. Her hand brushed the pocket of her coat, a small knife she had found in the kitchen earlier, enough to cut a rope or scare off a guard. She crept through hallways she had memorized, avoiding shadows that didn't belong to her. Each step was a calculated risk, each breath a stolen moment. The rain had started again, a merciless curtain that blurred vision and sound. Perfect. She reached the garden, wet leaves slicked beneath her shoes. The fountain reflected the moonlight, distorted by raindrops like fractured glass. Freedom was only a bridge away. Just one more stretch, and she could disappear into the forest beyond the estate. She ran. The wind whipped her hair across her face. Her coat clung to her, soaked and heavy. She didn't look back, couldn't risk it. Then she heard it, the soft, unmistakable sound of footsteps. Her chest tightened. "Stop!" The voice cut through the storm like a blade. She froze, then pushed forward anyway, desperation lending speed to her legs. The bridge came into view, slick and shining under the stormy night. And there, at the center, stood Luca, gun in hand, black coat plastered to him by the rain. His expression conflicted, eyes dark but not angry. Something else lingered there, Warning, fear, perhaps regret. Elena, he called, voice low but audible over the rain. She skidded to a stop, breath ragged. I have to go, she gasped. You shouldn't, he said quietly, taking a step forward. His finger rested lightly on the trigger, but the gun didn't move. You don't understand. I can't stay there. I understand more than you think, he said. But run again, and I might actually let you go. His words were a paradox, soft and threatening at once. She met his gaze, and in that instant, she realized the truth. He wasn't letting her go. Not really. The rain poured harder, drenching them both. Lightning split the sky, illuminating his face in sharp relief. The features of a man who could kill without hesitation, yet hesitated now. Why? She whispered, trembling. Because, he said slowly, stepping closer. If I let you go, I'd lose more than you could ever imagine. And I don't do losses well. She pressed her palms against her face, trying to push away the pull he had over her. But every instinct, every heartbeat, betrayed her. I'm not afraid of you, she said, though her voice wavered. Good, he murmured. Because fear isn't what keeps you alive. Curiosity, attachment, that's far more dangerous. A flash of lightning revealed his eyes again, impossibly deep, impossibly calculating, yet impossibly human. She couldn't run. Not really. And though she wanted to, part of her didn't want to leave. The rain fell around them, relentless, blurring the edges of the world. The bridge became a silent stage for two hearts caught between fear and something far more complicated. Somewhere deep inside, Elena understood. This night wasn't the end of her captivity. It was only the beginning. The rain from last night had washed the estate clean, leaving the air crisp and cold. Elena sat in the grand library, curled into a velvet armchair, fingers brushing the spine of a book she hadn't read. Thoughts of the bridge still haunted her, Luca's eyes, the unspoken warning, the pull she couldn't resist. Footsteps echoed softly on the marble floor. She looked up. Luca stood in the doorway, coat still damp from the storm, but his posture was different, heavier, burdened. I suppose we should talk, he said quietly, and for the first time, there was no trace of amusement in his voice. She nodded, uncertain. Her mind raced with questions, fear, and curiosity tangled together. He approached, hands clasped behind his back, eyes avoiding hers for a moment. Then slowly he began. The girl I wanted, he said, voice low, controlled, almost brittle, was someone who betrayed my family. My brother's informant. She was clever, dangerous, and she fooled me. Elena's breath caught. And you thought I was her? He nodded. Yes. You resemble her too closely. Someone wanted you taken to send a message. To distract me. Shock coursed through her. Her stomach twisted, not from fear this time, but from understanding. She had been chosen, not by chance, but as a pawn in a war she barely comprehended. Wait, she whispered, voice trembling. You mean, I wasn't the target? No, he said firmly, taking a seat across from her. His hands rested on his knees, fingers steepled. You were a coincidence. And yet now that you're here, I can't let you go. Elena's fear softened, replaced by something unexpected, pity. She could see the lines etched into his face, the weight of responsibility, the loneliness he carried behind cold eyes. You're trapped too, she said softly, almost to herself. By this world, by your family, by everything you've inherited. He looked at her then, a flicker of surprise crossing his features. And yet you understand nothing, he said, tone bitter. Everything I've done, every choice, it's been to protect what's mine. And sometimes, that includes people I don't want to care for. Her heart ached as she studied him. The monster the world whispered about wasn't the whole man. Behind the ruthless air, she glimpsed someone who had loved, lost, and survived at great cost. Then what now? She asked quietly. He leaned back, eyes shadowed. Now you know the truth. And knowing the truth changes everything. For both of us. Her fingers twitched, itching to touch the photograph she had seen. The girl who looked like her, the link to a past she didn't understand. Luca's gaze followed her movements. Do not think this frees you, he warned. It only shows how deep the world you stepped into runs. You're not just a visitor, Elena. You're part of it now, whether you like it or not. Her pulse quickened. So, I'm trapped? His eyes softened, almost humanly. Perhaps. But so am I. They sat in silence, two captives in different ways, one by blood and duty, the other by circumstance and fate. Outside, sunlight pierced the curtains, illuminating dust motes dancing like fleeting memories. And in that quiet, Elena realized something terrifying and undeniable. She could pity him. She could fear him. She could even begin to care. But there was no escaping either of them from the consequences of the past. The library had become a battlefield of words. Elena's frustration boiled over, years of fear, confusion, and questions demanding release. Luca, ever unreadable, had his own walls, and tonight they collided. You think I wanted this? To be caught in your world? Elena's voice trembled, sharp and defiant. Do you even realize what you've done to me? He remained calm, but the tension radiating from him made the air thrum with unspoken danger. Do you think I wanted this? He asked quietly. His eyes, usually sharp and controlled, softened just slightly. Do you think I wanted anyone to be here? She stepped closer, fury mingling with something she couldn't name. Then why? Why not let me go? Because, he said, closing the distance between them. I can't. Her chest tightened, disbelief mixing with an unsteady pulse. You can't. Or you won't. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached out, not with violence, but with a restraint that was almost more frightening than any threat. His hand brushed hers, small contact that sent warmth through her despite the tension. You make me forget what I am, he whispered, voice raw. And I don't know how to handle it. Elena froze, breath caught in her throat. The words were dangerous, intimate, unguarded, and for a fleeting moment, the barrier between captor and captive seemed to dissolve. He leaned closer, eyes searching hers as if looking for permission, for understanding, for something he could not name. Her own heartbeat thundered in her ears. She wanted to step back. She wanted to run. And yet, she didn't. The space between them closed, inches evaporating like steam, and the world narrowed to the sound of their breaths. Then bang! The sharp crack of a gunshot shattered the fragile bubble, echoing through the mansion. Elena stumbled back, heart leaping into her throat. Luca's head snapped toward the window, eyes darkening with instant, lethal focus. The real enemy has found us, he muttered, voice low but laced with steel. He stepped in front of her, protective, a barrier forged by instinct and something deeper. The near kiss remained suspended, an unfinished confession hanging heavy in the air. Neither could deny the pull between them, but survival demanded immediate action. Elena's mind raced, fear mingling with an inexplicable adrenaline. Part of her still wanted to linger in that moment, wanted to explore what they had almost dared to share. Luca grabbed her hand, firm and unyielding. Stay close, he ordered. No sudden moves. Not until I know who's outside. She nodded, letting herself be pulled toward him, aware that every step she took was also a surrender, not to violence, but to a strange, magnetic connection she had tried to fight since the day she arrived. Outside, rain fell in sheets, washing the mansion in silver light. Inside, shadows danced across walls, concealing secrets, dangers, and desires that could no longer remain ignored. And in that moment, Elena realized something terrifying. The line between fear and attraction was thinner than she had ever imagined. The world outside could wait. Inside, a storm had already begun. The mansion was supposed to be impenetrable. Luca had always believed that. Until tonight, Elena was in the library, attempting to sketch in the flickering candlelight, when the first explosion rocked the walls. Books tumbled to the floor. Dust and smoke choked the air. She stumbled backward, coughing, eyes wide with terror. Fire! Someone screamed. A voice she barely recognized, one of Luca's men, running through the hall with panicked haste. Luca appeared at the doorway, his coat ripped, shirt damp with rain and sweat. His eyes were dark, unreadable, scanning the chaos with precision. Everyone out, he barked, voice sharp enough to cut through the panic. Elena froze, heart pounding, realizing the truth before she could speak. This wasn't an attack from strangers. Some of his own men had betrayed him, turning the mansion into a battlefield. Flames spread quickly, devouring tapestries and furniture, licking the walls with hungry orange tongues. Smoke curled into the hallways, thick and suffocating. Elena's instinct screamed. She knew the layout better than anyone. She could get him out, if she could warn him in time. "Luca!" she shouted, voice breaking. "The west wing. The staircase. They're coming from inside." His eyes met hers, startled, then narrowed. He trusted her, just enough, just in that instant. Without hesitation, he followed her directions. Together, they moved through corridors shrouded in smoke, dodging debris, the roar of the fire and the betrayal echoing around them. She grabbed his arm to steady him over a splintered beam. "Step carefully." He glanced at her, and for the first time, there was no edge of danger in his gaze, only a fierce, raw acknowledgement. "You saved me," he muttered, voice low, almost unreadable in the chaos. "Don't thank me yet," she panted. "We're not out." By the time they reached the outer courtyard, flames had consumed much of the eastern wing. Fire reflected in the puddles of rainwater, casting long, flickering shadows across Luca's face. He stopped, turning to her with an intensity that stole her breath. Smoke curled around his shoulders, setting him apart in a halo of danger and authority. "If you stay," he said, voice low and deliberate, "I'll protect you. Every second, every step, every danger, I'll keep you safe." Elena's heart skipped. She had expected fury, punishment, or indifference. Instead, she heard promise. "And if I leave?" she whispered, voice trembling, eyes scanning the smoke-filled sky. "I'll find you," he said, the words almost a growl, edged with possessiveness and fear. His hand brushed hers, firm and grounding, though the fire raged between them in every direction. She looked at him, seeing both the monster the world feared and the man she had begun to understand, vulnerable, haunted, and terrifyingly human. The fire roared behind them, the mansion a hellish silhouette against the night. The betrayal from within had exposed more than just weakness. It had revealed trust, courage, and the fragile bond between them. As they stood in the courtyard, drenched, coughing, and battered, Elena realized that staying meant accepting the danger and the man who had captured her, and fleeing might not save her from what had already begun inside her. Somewhere between fear and understanding, survival and connection, she chose to stay. The mansion was scarred, walls blackened by smoke, chandeliers shattered, and halls still echoing with chaos. Luca stood at the center of it all, surveying the damage, the weight of command pressing down on him like a physical force. His usual composure wavered. The storm outside mirrored the storm inside. "Elena," he called softly, noticing her presence in the doorway. Rain still clung to her hair, and her eyes were wide, uncertain. She stepped forward, heart racing, knowing that tonight would demand a choice she could not avoid. Word came swiftly. His brother had returned. The man who had plotted, schemed, and undermined him for years was at the gates. Elena realized immediately what that meant. She, again, would become the leverage, a bargaining chip. The world that had trapped her from the beginning was tightening its grip. "I should leave," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "You could," Luca admitted, turning to face her fully. "But leaving now would only put you in more danger." Her chest tightened. "And staying puts me here, with you, in this war." He stepped closer, hands brushing against hers, their connection a tether in the storm. "I can't promise safety, but I can promise this: I will fight. For you. For this us." She studied him, noting the exhaustion under his sharp features, the vulnerability he tried to hide. And in that moment, the fear that had held her captive gave way to something else, something far more dangerous. Love. A gunshot echoed from the outer gate, cutting through the tense night like a warning. Luca's eyes darkened, but he didn't flinch. Instead, he placed a firm hand on her shoulder. "You have to choose, Elena," he said, voice low, controlled. "Your safety, or staying here with me." Her lips parted, heart thundering in her chest. She could feel the pull of survival, the instinct screaming at her to run, to vanish, to save herself. But she also felt the pull of him. The man who had terrified her, intrigued her, and, against all reason, begun to claim her heart. "I'm staying," she said finally, voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. His eyes searched hers, a flash of gratitude and something darker, fear. "Are you sure?" "Yes," she whispered. "Not because I'm afraid, but because I can't leave you. Not now. Not ever." The air between them shifted. The storm outside seemed to abate, if only slightly. But the danger had not passed. It had only sharpened, waiting at the edges of the night. Luca pulled her close, their foreheads touching, breaths mingling, unspoken promises flowing between them. In this fragile moment, she understood that love was not safe, and loyalty came with a price. "I don't deserve you," he murmured, voice rough, almost broken. "Perhaps," she said softly, "but neither do you deserve to fight alone." The distant echo of footsteps signaled that the next battle had already begun. Outside, the world was unforgiving, but inside, in that brief, stolen silence, Elena had made her choice. Love over fear, loyalty over escape, heart over instinct. And with that choice, the night became theirs to face together. The mansion was quiet now, but the silence was heavy, almost suffocating. Elena sat on the marble floor of the main hall, arms wrapped around her knees, staring at the scorched wood and broken glass. The chaos of the night still lingered, flames that had devoured walls now reduced to smoke, echoes of betrayal and gunfire hanging like ghosts. Luca moved around the room, methodical and tense, his mind unraveling faster than the mansion's fragile walls. His hands clenched, unclenched, and clenched again, betraying the storm inside him that he had always hidden so well. He finally turned to her, expression unreadable, but eyes storm-tossed, vulnerable. "Elena," he said quietly, voice low, deliberate. I need to tell you something. Something I should have realized sooner." She looked up, weary but alert. "What is it?" He approached, footsteps soft against the rubble-strewn floor. You were never the wrong girl." Elena's brow furrowed. I don't understand." "The plan," he continued, voice trembling just enough to reveal the weight he bore, "was to frame you, to lure me into weakness, to manipulate me, and destroy everything I've built." Her stomach twisted, a mixture of horror and disbelief. "Someone set me up?" "Yes." His jaw tightened. "Someone used your resemblance, your life, to break me. And I let it happen. I let my emotions, my attachment, cloud my judgment." Elena's chest tightened. She had feared he would see her as a mistake, a pawn. But now she saw the truth. He had been human all along, caught in the tangle of love and duty, power and morality. "You love me," she whispered, heart aching. He flinched slightly, as if her words were sharp, inevitable. I did. I do." His voice broke, raw and honest, the kind of confession reserved for the most dangerous of truths. He knelt beside her, hands brushing lightly against her hair. "And that love," he said, gaze haunted, "made me weak, or maybe human. But in this world, weakness can be deadly." Tears pricked at Elena's eyes. "Then why stay with me? Why risk everything?" He exhaled slowly, a shadow of a smile ghosting his lips. "Because you were the only right thing in this wrong life. The only thing that made sense when everything else is chaos and betrayal. I couldn't let go. I wouldn't." Her hand reached for his, tentative at first, then with certainty. And now, his eyes darkened, fierce yet filled with sorrow. "Now, I don't know if I can keep you safe. Not from them. Not from the world. Not even from me." The words hung between them, heavy with inevitability, heartbreak, and unspoken promises. Outside, the faint glow of dawn began to pierce the smoke-filled windows, illuminating dust particles like fragments of a broken life. Luca pressed his forehead against hers, a fragile, intimate act in a house that had seen violence, betrayal, and near death. "I should let you go," he whispered. "I should let you live, free from all this. But my heart won't let me." Elena clutched him, the warmth of his body grounding her in a reality that had been anything but safe. And as the first rays of light cut through the ruins, they both understood the terrible price of keeping her. love in a world that demanded ruthlessness, and humanity in a life built on fear. The mansion lay in ruins, the aftermath of fire and betrayal etched into every wall. Luca stood on the balcony, rain-slick stone beneath his boots, the wind tugging at his coat. In his hands, the weight of a choice pressed heavier than any bullet or vendetta ever could. Elena appeared at the garden gate, framed by the dim glow of lanterns and the last streaks of sunset. Her expression was cautious, determined, yet tinged with sorrow. She had fought to survive, to understand, to love, and now the moment of reckoning had come. "You don't have to do this," she called, voice steady despite the storm in her chest. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he watched her, eyes scanning every detail, her stance, her courage, the way her hair clung wet to her face, the fire of defiance and care dancing in her gaze. "I do," he said finally, voice low, rough with emotion. "Because if I don't, I'll lose more than power. I'll lose you." She stepped closer, heart hammering, every instinct screaming both fear and longing. "Then let me go," she whispered. "If you truly care, let me choose life, not chains." The words struck him like a physical blow. He clenched his fists, nails digging into his palms. Power had defined him, shaped him, protected him. But standing here, watching her ready to step into the world beyond his reach, he realized that love, fragile, dangerous, human, mattered more than any empire he had inherited. Luca took a slow step back, then another, finally releasing her hand. "Go," he said, voice breaking, a mixture of command and plea. "Live, Elena. Survive. Be free." She blinked, uncertain if she heard correctly, but hope flared in her chest. "You really mean it?" "Yes," he whispered, "even if it costs me everything I am." The wind carried her forward as she stepped past the gate. Behind her, Luca remained on the balcony, silhouetted against the darkening sky, his figure both monumental and heartbreakingly human. She glanced back once, lips parting in a silent promise. Months later, the city had moved on. Elena walked along a quiet street, a book in hand, the scent of rain lingering in the air. Life had reclaimed her in small, imperfect ways, laughter, morning light, fleeting freedom. And then she saw him, a figure in a coat, hat low, eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses. Familiar posture, the weight of presence unmistakable. He didn't approach, didn't speak. He simply nodded, a silent acknowledgement of all they had shared, all they had survived. Elena's chest tightened. She returned the nod, understanding everything that needed no words. Love had been a dangerous choice, a fragile risk that had nearly destroyed them both. Yet here it was alive, persistent, proof that even when fate had been cruel and wrong, it had still found a way. She turned the corner, heart full and aching, knowing he was out there somewhere, fighting battles she would never see, yet still connected to her through that unspoken bond. And for the first time in months, Elena felt the freedom to breathe, because sometimes letting go was the ultimate act of love.